Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, the show where the inner warriors shine in their light. Presented by Praxis 33, the company that aligns your thoughts, goals, and actions to create your best life. I'm your host, Daryl Snow. Have you ever been disillusioned with Western medicine? Have you ever felt that there has to be a better way to treat your body? Today, we're speaking with Jodi Anne Law, and Jodi is a highly trained, certified energy medicine practitioner and an energy healer. She's a senior cardiac nurse and provides a holistic approach to activate the body's energy systems to heal itself. Burnt out, she left traditional healthcare to follow her passion for holistic healing. Now she empowers those in emotional and physical pain to take control of their health, understand their bodies, and connect with their intuition. Jodi, I welcome you to the show.
Hi, Daryl. Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
You'd think with that intro that I've never done this before. That was clicking around where it's early here. Where you're in the UK. Where are you at?
Yes, yeah, I'm in Manchester, so we're 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, so you've had a full day to wake up.
Yeah, yeah, slowing down now. So be nice.
Did you grow up in the UK, or where did you grow up?
No, I grew up in Australia. I've been here nearly 6 years now. Yes.
So, what was it like being a young girl in Australia?
Well, I guess whether I'm biased or not, it was pretty free, to be honest. I'm a country girl. So Perth is the most isolated city in the world in Western Australia, and I grew up 5.5 hours drive south of there. So if you keep going, you'd hit the Antarctica sort of thing. So even now the town still has 16,000 people in the Shire as well as the town. So it's not a big place,
Wow.
but it's a port. It's on the coast.
So,
Tourism is the thing.
so when you say free, what does that mean to you?
Lots of space, and even though south it's a milder climate than what you usually associate with Australia, you could still swim all year round, and we were a kilometre away from the beach, so I just used to ride my bike down. I was a surf lifesaver in my teenage years, a bit like Baywatch, but I'm a pretty flat chested, so not quite the same. But we had the red bathers, and I was obsessed with that for a long time. So it was just the ease of getting around, and I guess playing as a kid. We had a 3/4 acre block, and that wasn't unusual. And that we were considered town folk. Um,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you're rural and you're on a farm, our next door neighbours had a farm, and even though we didn't have one ourselves, you'd go out to them because a lot of people around the district did have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
S-
and my father actually owned the commercial laundry down there, so we used to go to all the hotels and collect all the dirty laundry, and that was what we did in the town on our Saturday morning. It was
So
funny
how
looking
does
back.
someone go from pretending to be on Baywatch to being a nurse, because you were a cardiac nurse for a long time. So how did you transition yourself into medicine?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I suppose through my teenage years, I ended up at my high school years. I ended up in Perth, in the city. It was at one point, it was 1.1 million people at the time, so it's not a big city comparison to most cities. And I went to high school. I went to high school there, and then boarding school, and then I stayed on and did my university there. But I got into it. Funnily enough, I'd always done care with the disabled. I know they don't call them that anymore, but it was the special school down the road. I went on camps with them, and just local groups of physically disabled children. I'd always worked with them, so I knew it was going to be something in the health system. I didn't really know what, and then I guess I it was just a transition into to care. And I also wanted to do something I could travel with easily. That was probably my two prerequisites. And so I
Yes.
went into nursing. And the thing with nursing, though, you can really travel with it. And my first nursing job was in northern Western Australia in the mining towns. So I've actually done a lot of rural nursing, and that is so different. It's so different than city nursing. And then I end up in the UK, which is it's so different again from Australian nursing, even within a city environment. So yeah, yeah, it's so many different.
How is
So
I understand how mining nursing can be different because it's sometimes more triage and a different environment. But how is the nursing from Australia to UK different?
okay, so I guess there's a lot more red tape here.
Oh,
Is the reality of it. And because I'd done a lot of rural nursing as well, I mean, in a city environment in Australia, obviously it's more restricted, that you don't have the autonomy either, but there's even less autonomy here. And certainly in the outback Australia, you have a lot of autonomy because there's no one else there. So, and I guess that was what I really enjoyed, that
so how
side of
long did
things.
you? Because you kind of grew up a free spirit. You had a lot of autonomy, a lot of freedom, a lot of things that you could do. It kind of
Mm.
translated into your first practice of medicine, where it's still some autonomy, some freedom, and then it seems like you got more constricted and more constricted and more constricted. How long did it take you to realize that that was enough? When did your burnout occur? Like 5 years
Oh
into
wow.
Australia, or I mean,
No, that
UK?
like seriously. So you've got your professional life and you've got your home life. So really, I've always used nursing. I've moved a lot. Like my longest nursing job's been 2 years anywhere. Like that's ridiculous, isn't it? In a lifetime. So I used it to my advantage, and but I obviously needed to fuel that mental side of things. And then also I was in a relationship. I was married for 20 years, but it wasn't a very it didn't serve me a lot. Like by the time I left, I didn't know who I was, and so I had those two rungs going sort of at the same time. And so and at the time when you're in it, I didn't, even just talking to you now, I realize how much freedom I have had growing up and in my life and what I expect now. But and I haven't had it. I'm starting to get it back now. I'm doing what I'm passionate about. But for years, like it was like having a noose around my neck from not just the work side of things, but the family side as well. So because I actually, when I left, well, I had been married for 20 years, and I left, and I was not in such. I was in such a bad place that I left my two young children behind. They were 5 and 7. I mean, no one does that if they're happy.
No, especially not mothers typically. So,
No.
how did you meet your husband?
I I'd actually been over in the UK doing the backpack trip that you do, lots of Australians do. And I went back home. So I was living with my parents, poor post my backpacking. And I met him. I met him through them. He was there at dinner one night. And so I met him. And then things went downhill from there, if I'm honest.
You can thank your parents for the 20 years. The
Yes. You do have to laugh.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's what keeps us sane for sure. What started off as a romance? When did it start to devolve for you?
It was pretty early on, but by the time I got back, so and you mentioned earlier, how did I end up getting into the restriction of an institution like nursing? Um, by then, by at that stage, I was already had a love hate relationship with nursing. I loved helping the people, and that goes to today. But the institution was so suffocating. And my first nursing job, interestingly enough, even though it was in a mining town, the indigenous population were there. So, but there were so many things that I saw in my naive 18-year-old state that I was gobsmacked with just the lack of integration and the lack of understanding of of a different race, even though they were the national race, and how we dealt with them. And it was like we were trying to, white man was trying to play God. And yet it was, but it's a textbook white man. Why don't you actually get out there and see how they function as to what they actually need? So I was really quite disillusioned at that stage because I was going to work for the Royal Flying Doctors and do all that sort of thing. So I was only there for about 10 months. And then I at that stage, you could actually, well, each state in Australia has their own even medical board as well. At the time, they had a separate. At the time, they did anyway. And so I just wrote to the different hospitals for a new job, and I ended up getting a job in Queensland, which is over the other side of Australia, at Royal Brisbane Hospital on their orthopaedic ward. So I went over there, and I was disillusioned with that. I was only there for 3 months, and then I left and went back to Perth and decided I'd go to the UK. So by the time I got back from the UK, I was so desperate for direction. And hello, that's when I met my ex-husband.
And how old were you when you were traveling to the UK and then coming back? Like
That was
19,
early
20,
20s, about 22.
22? Yeah. Still, when you have a vision of the world that is kind of kumbaya, everybody should be nice to each other, and it doesn't translate well once you start diving into the institution of institutions. That disillusionment goes away, and if you don't conform to it, then it really causes a lot of misery within your soul. And even the conforming to it causes misery because you have this ideation of what the world should be. And you're finding out that, oh my gosh, not everyone had the wonderful freedom and life that I had. And not everyone cares for each other in the way that I do. We see that a lot it's amazing that I've talked to people all over the world, and it's the same. Humans are the same. I mean, we behave the same. We those of us who have a heart-centered lifestyle and want to help others have that same disillusionment when we get into the institutions, no matter where we are in the world. They all crush the soul of humanity.
Oh, and this is the thing, and you think we would learn from that because as human beings, we created it. So
Right.
surely we can create the kumbaya as well, and the bubble that we want to live in. It's mass, isn't it? It's getting the right number of people because honestly believe every single person has been put on this earth for a purpose, and no two people have the same purpose. So there should be no competition in terms of cutthroatness. It's just let's allow everybody to be who they've been put on this earth to be. Everyone's soul would be happy, and wouldn't the world be such a different place? And I truly believe that we can do that. We just need enough people to say that's what we want.
Yeah, and I mean that in my coaching business, that's what I help my clients understand. Their limiting beliefs are put on them by the people around
Yeah.
them, not just themselves, but they start to believe everybody else's version of who they should be instead of who they were meant to be. And one of the biggest problems that I find, most people think of everything as finite, like it's a piece of pie. And if I don't get my piece of the pie, there won't be any pie left.
Yes.
But
Yes.
everything
Yes.
is infinite, and there's infinite ability for everybody to share in the infinite energy and life that's out there. And when you think of it as pie, yeah, you want your share of it. But when you think of it as, your own bakery, well,
Well,
it's
this is it, isn't it? Like, we're as limited as we're the ones that limit ourselves as an
we
individual,
we are.
depends on all sorts of things, of course, but we totally are. I mean, the more open we are and heart-centered we are, life is unlimited. And I absolutely 100%. Why wouldn't I want that? Why wouldn't
Ex-
everyone want that?
why wouldn't everyone want that? So, how does this young, energetic, carefree woman get into a marriage that goes south quickly, according to you, and stay for 20 years? Like, that doesn't
That's
seem.
no, it seriously, like, exactly, like, why? Well, at the time, I definitely was looking for something, for some direction, and he was a lot older than me, and my parents didn't think much of him, so they kind of went by the wayside at that stage, and so I made that choice, and I didn't feel as though I could get out of it, and I seriously was very naive with hindsight, and I guess I was wanting. I hadn't realized then that it felt like this rather than I couldn't see the wood from the trees with it. And it was just, okay, that's what we did. It was, and I just got on with it. I was totally in fight and flight. And I guess in reality, I wasn't, if I think about it, I wasn't overly confident in myself, but I never realized it because I just used to charge off. I traveled on my own. If I wanted to do something, I did it. And I suppose I still do, but with a lot more insight into the world now, I'd like to think. So, and that's the thing, it can happen to anyone. It is gobsmacking that someone, I mean, I'm relatively opinionated in a lot of things. If I'm not happy with something, and my conscience has to speak up, and I always have been. So how did I get into a situation like that? I still can't explain it. It doesn't fit with me and who I am at all.
So, what did it take for you to get yourself out of that?
Mm,
I mean,
yeah.
20 years is
So
a long time. And at some point, especially when you have two young children, at some point, enough does become enough. What what was your defining moment that said no more?
okay, so there were two things actually. So one of the things that happens when you're with someone that's a bit of a narcissist, you move around. Like, we moved around a lot because we could, and it was easy for me to get work, and he was working from home on the computer, and so we never had a community around us. And my family went by the wayside almost straight away, and we also didn't have children till about 12 years into the relationship, and so I didn't have a community around me at all. We would always move on. You didn't actually feel as though you'd finished anything off. You just were off you go again. And this town that we were actually in Cairns in northern Queensland, and I'd been there 2 years, and I made a friend. And there was two things that happened. I was going out to, hello?
No, you're still there.
I
I
was,
just given you the
oh,
floor. You're okay.
oh my God. I was going out to lunch with this girl who had been to lunch with once before. And she rings me early. It was about, and she rings me early in panic. Oh my God, I've just put dye in my hair, and the water's been turned off in my apartment. Can I come round and have a shower? And I couldn't stop laughing. So of course she comes around and has a shower, and my ex-husband, he was so rude to her. I wasn't going to make apologies for anybody. Like, he was so rude to her. The way he treated me, like a second-class citizen. It was gobsmacking. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was, I actually met somebody dog walking, because my role had become in the house. I didn't have much to do with my children, but my role was to walk the dog. So I ran into this man who lived around the corner, and we just got on really well. So we used to walk the dogs together. And the fact that I'd actually met somebody who I got on with and treated me like a human being, it was two things that happened within the short space of time, that I thought, I have to get out, because I actually laughed again, and normal things that I hadn't done in such a long time. And so I kind of packed my bag and left. And that friend I stayed with for a couple of weeks before I got a place. And I literally had one day when because in the relationship as well. So I'd go off to work, he'd be Mr. Mum, and they had their little routine. So even when I was off, because, we were doing 12-hour shifts in intensive care, even when I was off, they had their routine. And I was often really tired as well. So I wasn't involved in the family life normally anyway. So they just got on with things. And so I figured that, like, there was nothing to lose. It wasn't like I was involved with my children anyway. And so they went out to do part of their routine one day, and I packed my suitcase, and I had a couple of canvases because I paint as well. And I walked down the stairs and got picked up and left. It was horrendous. Even looking back now, it's like, oh my God, that feeling in your heart.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of courage. It's funny though, you spent a lot of your lifetime under this suppression, And it
Mm,
took seeing how he treated someone else
mm,
for you to
mm,
decide, well, I don't want that for myself either. That's
mm.
kind of an interesting way to wake up to what nightmare you were living in. So how did you transition yourself into the holistic life and the
Well,
energy,
yeah, well, that
healer?
happened around then. So I went down the traditional route, as you do, because that's what we know. So I saw a psychologist and took antidepressants. And at the end of that 12 months, nothing had changed. And if anything, I was in a worse situation because I'd created all that pain. And what the hell? Why did I do that when I'm probably worse off? 12 months on, I'm feeling no better. So fortunately, I had not long started yoga. And that was really the turning point. So, my first 2 weeks of yoga, I joined the local yoga group and I knew that I had to do something every day for sanity. So I did yoga every day. And for the first 2 weeks, I was in tears at the end of every class. So I figured there's got to be something in this. Don't know what it is. And then it wasn't long after that I did a teacher training in yoga, and I actually moved to the country as well. So I had more space and time because it's not as expensive to live to spend on me. So and the teacher training course was around. It was really mindfulness based. So it was amazing, actually, if I'm honest. One weekend a month for 12 months, and it was one of these women who had been doing yoga for the 40 years. So she was a true yogi, and this eccentric woman who just it was perfect. She that mentor, and the environment she created and the women that she attracted. I was so opinionated the first weekend. I can remember being the angry one and hated the world, and just surrounded by that, like, just shut up, Jodi, get on with it. And it was exactly like that. So really, quite quickly, my life started to change outside, and my kids would catch the train up every second weekend, and I got a property for them so that they could stay with me. And we started to create a relationship of our own together. And I started to find out what it was like to be a mum, and it was really fantastic, actually. And I even got, and job wise, I got an area of work that worked, so I didn't have to work full time, and it was in a cath lab, cardiac. I ended up getting into the cardiac area, and that was the turning point. And then 3 months into that, I was introduced to energy psychology and ended up doing an energy psychology diploma. And basically, that's dealing with your emotions and giving myself permission to understand what the hell was going on. And that was so those two together, it was a game changer. Like understanding yourself on an energetic level, life is just so different, so, so different. And, you know,
And
if I hadn't have,
when you actually start to be surrounded by love and compassion and positive energy, it melts away all the rest of that baggage and that dirt that you were. It's kind of like a energetic shower. It just washes away all of that other stuff, and then you realize, wow, I'm still in here. I just buried
yes.
myself, but I'm still in here. So I'm gonna ask you about this book. How did you come to be a part of this book?
Well, one of the many things I did. So roll on. I did the yoga and energy psychology, and then I my ex-husband decided he's English, so he wanted to come back to the UK and bring the children. And for me to come over, I needed a visa. So I applied for a visa. And the first visa I applied for, I didn't get. And so I was not a very happy chappy. In fact, I was really, really angry. And meanwhile, I'd been starting to follow. I don't know if you're familiar with a company called Mind Valley.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd started following them, and they have a Mind Valley University. It's a well, then this was 2018. They have a month. They had a month-long conference, and they'd done the first year in Spain, and then I started following them just after that, and then they had one in Tallinn, Estonia. And because I hadn't got a visa, I couldn't get into the UK to visit my children, even for a tourist visa, even for a couple of weeks, while I was waiting to get a visa to live here. So, very annoyed, I quit my job, knowing that I could pick up work there when I got back. And I bought a ticket to Tallinn, Estonia for a month with Mind Valley University. And my daughter flew over from the UK and she came and spent the month with me. And I met a lady called JB Owen. I met her on a train on our way to Mind Valley. They were living just around the corner from us there. And that's how I was asked to write for Ignite Your Parenting. But we had honestly, it was the most amazing month, because within that group of, I think there was about 800 people, but within that group you found your tribe. And it was such a nurturing environment. All these women that I met with teenagers, and they're all not looking for an institutional way of life. So it was so enriching and holistic. And we had the most amazing time together, getting to know my daughter, because I hadn't spent much time with her, and also being nurtured by this group of women. Oh, it was amazing. So that's how I got to write that chapter in the book. But also, like, I'd heard about her starting this Ignite series, and I had not when I actually arrived here. I wrote it after when I just arrived in the UK. And I went down to the park and I had all this stuff in my head, and I must have written it in about 3 hours. And that was more or less the chapter that came out. So it was clearly ready to be written and put in the book. Yeah.
And now you have a website, and you have an offer that helps people as well. What is your website about, and what do you offer on there?
Yeah, there's a few things. So I do one-on-one work with people. So I've got a 12-week program, Radiant Health, harnessing the power to heal yourself. So it's about as you introduced, in empowering people in emotional and physical pain. So it's about understanding yourself internally, and we go through that whole process of awareness, what is going on, and then it takes you onto, and where would you like to be, and let's create that vision and head towards that. But until you have that awareness, how do you change things? So a lot. It's actually my journey. It's all the shortcuts from my journey to that got me to this point now. And I've got some free things on the website as well. So it sort of gives you that introduction of me and who I am, so you can get to know me a bit better. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I've got a YouTube channel that does actually need a little bit more work, but there's some videos on there that'll help with energy medicine. So for me, it's very much about making it practical for people so that they can use it on an everyday basis. Because, when people go to any energy healer, you come for a session and at the end of it, you feel amazing. But how do you maintain that amazing feeling? It's learning how to do that when you're not in front of your healer, because we've all got it within us, but it's knowing that it's there. And also, because we can't see energy, how do we get a handle on it? It's that. And there's a lot of ways to do it, and everybody is different. So it's very much tuning into you as an individual and how that's going to benefit you, and where you need help, because no one is the same.
Thank you for watching Prospera TV Network. We hope you're enjoying the show. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
you've been on both sides of the aisle, the Western medicine traditional and the energy healing. There's, I a lot of my tribe and a lot of my circle is energy healers and various modalities. And, my wife is a energy healer and a shamanic Reiki healer and various other things as well. So I'm very attuned with that world. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
there's a time and place for Western medicine.
Oh, absolutely.
But my wife has been chronically ill for 10 years. And we spent the first 2 years of her illness going to every doctor at the Mayo Clinic here is a very world renowned
Yeah.
clinic. People from all over the world come to the Mayo Clinic for their treatments because it's world renowned. But we went 3 to 4 times a week for the first 2 years and saw almost every specialist that they had.
Mm.
And what we ended up with after those 2 years was extremely high medical bills and her
Mm.
on about 45 different prescriptions.
Mm.
And she
Mm.
didn't even start to get better until we started reducing those medications and tapping more into her own energy and her own body and her own healing. So again, I reiterate, yes, there's a time and place for Western medicine. Surgeons, I'll take them all day long. Doctors, I I have a very
So,
strong
so
opinion on doctors.
well,
Drug
this I
pushers.
think
They're
that's the
legal drug
thing. I mean,
pushers.
for I don't know how. Yeah, well, that's another conversation. Probably, I'd be curious to know how it works in America. But the thing, like, yeah, absolutely. You got to. If you're in an emergency situation, every time go to the hospital, no question about it. And if you're in doubt, go and get tests. If your intuition is telling you it's something more, go and follow your intuition 100%. But when you've had all the tests and they can't find anything wrong, yeah, chronic illness, 90% of chronic illness is caused by stress. So that tells me that let's work on de-stressing. And I'm not sure how having a tablet can de-stress you.
I
There's so many, yeah,
and then they give you one tablet to treat the other tablet that sets the side effects for the
completely.
other tablet. And doctors here in America seem to want to mask over the illness or the problem as opposed to heal the cause and
The
and
cause.
the root. My wife had breast implant illness. She was poisoned by her
Oh, yeah.
implants. She had heavy metal toxicity. At one point, she had arsenic poisoning and almost died from.
Okay.
And none of these pills are going to fix that. Getting
No,
the
and
stuff out of your body
it's a
is what.
toxin,
Yeah.
and this is the thing. And so, in the place that my last workplace, that happened often as well. People having to come in to get the best breast implants removed because they were
Hmm.
toxic to their body. Now, why are they even allowing that to happen?
Yeah. People would
It's a
be
bit like
very much
food in the
amazed.
supermarket.
We are very adept in what goes into those now. And my wife, people would think, oh, well, she had the silicone. No, my wife had the saline, and she got the saline because she knew the silicone was bad. And when we got her explanted, one of the things we found out is that every single implant is encased in silicone. So it doesn't matter that you have saline, it is encased in the silicone. And we have a laundry list of metals and heavy metals. And I mean, they have acetone, they have plutonium, they have aluminum, they have titanium, they have printer ink, they have kerosene, arsenic. Why do you need all this crap in your body to look nice and natural? It's, and look, if people want implants, great, go get them. But do it with the information of what you're actually getting, because you're
No,
not just
completely.
getting a saline sack.
It's the conformed. It's the informed consent that's the thing. It is
Absolutely.
completely that with so many things. It's like with the heart, you know. Well, it's actually not just the heart. It's with anything. People come in and we read off. We ask them questions. We ask them really practical questions. Now, the question that we ask, because a lot of the work in the cath lab is done under X-ray, well, all of it, And so we ask every single person between the ages of 12 and 55, every single person, is there any chance you're pregnant? Now, I'm sorry, but how you have to make a joke of that, because the majority of people that are men, that look like men, are not pregnant. But we have to ask that question. But they don't ask, what happened to you in the 12 months prior to you presenting with a heart problem?
Right.
Did you have any stress in your life? You know, because I can tell you now, 99.9% of them will actually have had stress in their life prior to presenting.
Yeah.
Just because you have a conversation with them, and that's what most of them say, but it's never asked. And, you know, when I was working in Melbourne, there's a condition for the heart that it's called Takotsubo, and it gives you all the presentation of having a heart attack. They say it usually happens for women, and it's to do with grief. It's called the broken heart syndrome. So you think you're having a heart attack, so you get in there under X, and Takotsubo means squid in Japanese. And the X-ray, under X-ray, your heart, so the blood vessels are fine, they're getting the oxygen. So the pain is caused by not enough oxygen to the heart with a constriction. No constriction, but the heart looks like a squid. Around the atrium, which is the top of the heart, and the ventricles, there's like a constriction, like a squid, and they're not pumping synchronistically. So there's desynchronization, and the heart isn't getting the blood it needs, but because it looks like a squid. And so it should be a different form of treatment, because they're getting that sort of pain. But in a lot of cases, it's not. And they're not treated for grief afterwards. And you'll never forget the picture once you've seen it once. Yeah. It was really distinct.
I chuckle at doctors now, because my wife has become her own healer. She's had to find the medical studies and the information to help herself get out of this. And, you know, I ask you,
did she get involved in her healing Reiki after or before this happened to her?
She got during.
Yeah, so it started. So she was in ill health, and then she started her healing journey. Yeah.
And but I challenge any CIA agent to find more information than my wife can, because she will dig until she finds. But in order to go to a doctor, they have to have, you know, these high reviews. And I remember we had to go to a gastro doctor here, and he had all these awards for being the best in the valley, and you know, all these medical accolades and blah blah blah. And so we go, and we're sitting kind of behind him, and he's sitting at his desk, and he's reading down her chart, and I can see his side profile, so I can see the side of his face. She's sitting a little further back and can't. And I see him going down all of her medical issues one by one, and his face just kind of gets more and more forlorn. And he turns to her and he says, "I can't help you. You need to find another doctor." And what I saw his face do is mentally say, I can't put her in my little box, and I can't give her a pill that she hasn't already had, so I have no solutions. And you're supposed to be the best that we have.
And so he would then, that would hurt his statistics, is what you're saying.
It would hurt his statistics, right?
So he will only deal with the people that are easy to care for. That's why statistics look so good. Yeah. Oh, that is just appalling.
Yeah, and we had another doctor. She tried him, and he couldn't help. And so several years later, she went back to that practice to try a different doctor in that practice. And they said, because you weren't able to be helped by this other doctor, no other doctor in our practice can treat you.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That's the kind of crap that we have here in America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how do you help people with their emotion and physical pain to take control of their health and understand their bodies better?
Yeah, there's a lot that we can do, but it's working on tuning into you. So what are you thinking? What are you feeling? So and what do you believe? So a lot of the thing we can do is change the beliefs and tap into the emotion that comes with all that. So getting that connection with This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling, because it's all energy. Everything is energy. And then once you start to look at the world like that and tune into, oh, yeah, well, every time I think that, that's what's going on in my body. Because every symptom you get is because there's been so hang on, it's easier to explain it like, if you're experiencing symptoms, then you've got energy that's out of whack. So if we can balance the energies in your body, that's what we work with, balancing the energies, then you're not going to get the symptoms. Yeah. So anything we can do to balance them. And so working on your beliefs, there's a whole few programs that we can do depending on what suits you. And then you can also measure your energy. So it's kinesiology testing is one of the methods. And it's just working out then where your imbalances are. So I will test. And for me, it's really important, having had the background that I've had, I want to know that is weak, and then we're going to strengthen it, or vice versa. And, we mentioned about stress earlier. So most people that come to me in the Western world, which is where I operate, and even if it's online, have got over energy in their fight and flight response. So most of us are stressed, and you can measure that in the body by testing that in the body. And so there's a system. The meridian system is like the arteries and veins of the energy medicine world. And a part of that is called the triple warmer, and that's the fight and flight part of it. And it's usually over energized because we are on the go and we've got all those hormones running through our body, and our bodies aren't designed to have those stress hormones running through them for any length of time. So because that's going on, triple warmer is usually overactive. But to be overactive, it's a system that we're talking about. So it has to draw energy from somewhere. And the first place it draws energy is from the spleen meridian. So for most of us, the triple warmer is overactive and the spleen is underactive. And so some really basic things we can do are calming the triple warmer, strengthening the spleen, and then connecting their balance so that they've got a good relationship as well. So that's sort of 101. And then we look at things like grounding. Again, it's that basic frame that we want to get right, because there's 9 energy systems we can work with. We want to get the foundation right so that then anything else we do work with is more chance it's going to hold for longer, because our energy has bad habits. So we want to change those habits, just like everything else, because everything's energy anyway. But if we can change the habits of the energy that have got you those migraines, then we'll do that, rewire them. But we've got to keep practicing those new habits so that they're reinforced. And something, for example, for like a migraine, so it's like so. First of all, someone will come and usually tell you. You don't actually have to know anything about their story, but most people do want to tell you their story. So you hear about the story, you've got a bit of information. Then you do their energy testing, and they've had headaches. So there could be a few things that we were dealing with. But we would look at the pathways, the energetic pathways around the area where the pain is. It may not be there. It may be referred pain. So there's lots of things. You're paying detective with all the bits and pieces, and you work on that, because the whole idea behind it is we get the energy flowing. If you've got something, a chronic illness, there's energy blocked somewhere. So let's unblock it. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife's currently going to a Chinese medicine guy, and that's exactly what he does. And it's funny because, he can touch various parts of her body and say, this is causing your pain in another part of your body, And so it's
Yes.
not just where you're feeling the pain, it's coming from some other part of your body. And that's where it's manifesting, is in that part. So I
Yeah.
very much understand, what you're doing there. You've been on both sides of the aisles, as I said. Which do you prefer and which do you see better results with, given the trauma
Definitely
side
this.
aside?
Yeah, of course. Definitely the what I'm doing now. Like, there's no question. The transformations but it's the empowerment. The once people start to make connections about what they believe and where they're feeling. And once they start to make it, they realize they have got control over it. They can then tap into it and release it. And it's unbelievable. And the transformation in people's lives. So they come in with panic attacks. How do I stop that? I can't cope with anything at the moment. And then you show them some really simple exercises to change that. And then once they get over the panic attacks, which can happen immediately, then all these other things that they start to work on, because you work on one system, then everything benefits. And it's not just the panic attacks that it works on, it benefits the rest of your life, because you're raising your frequency. Everything is energy. If it feels good, do more of that. If it doesn't feel good, then ask yourself, well, how can we think differently? Can we make a different choice? It's kind of that simple, but it's getting into the habit that makes it simple. Initially, it's like, what the hell is she talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple but complex system, and it is boiled down to our beliefs, and part of that is reprogramming ourselves from what we were told to believe, because you really have to
Yeah.
ask yourself, is this something I truly believe, or is this something that I picked up somewhere along the line from somebody else's belief?
Completely. And they're exactly the questions I've asked. This program that I've created is things that exactly all those things that I've asked. So it's really digging deep without, and confrontational, but not in a painful way. Confrontational in the like, oh my God, she's right. Yes, it's that. And then you start to join the dots. And then there's an online component, but there's also then we get on. So anything that's being triggered, let's work on it. And we go through, there's several processes we can go through to work through that energetically. Because, I mean, even now, if I'm stuck on something and I haven't been able to work on it myself, I will go to a friend and you're human. If I don't work on myself, then I can't work on anybody else, because I'm just chock-a-block full. And so being human, we all need energy medicine is the reality. But certainly from a chronic illness point of view, I would encourage anyone to
Well,
delve
and
into it.
I truly believe that healing is a lifelong journey. It's not a final destination. There is always
Yeah.
some next level that can take us to the next level. And, it is awareness of yourself and the world around you that really creates the opportunity for healing to start, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I would 100% agree, because again, I know it's like everything is energy, and it isn't. You can't stand alone, because we live in a world. So it's very much around the environment around you. But that also brings you back to, like, lots of healers, which is fantastic, because then you're surrounded by that energy more often than not. And that's the sort of world that you want to create. Like, why wouldn't we? Why would you want to invite angst into your world,
Yeah, and even in that environment, there's still always something. The flow does get stopped up and blocked if we don't continually, mindfully keep it flowing. It,
Yeah.
it will become stagnant. You've experienced a lot in your life. You've gone from freedom of a child to the confinement of a 20-year marriage to a long lifetime in cardiac units into this now energy practice. So I'm going to ask you the one final question that I ask all my guests. What does a warrior spirit mean to Jodi?
What does a warrior spirit mean to me? Wow. Warrior spirit, keep going to try and tap into your intuition, because you've got all the answers anyway. It took me a little while to find mine, but I tell you what, when you do, it's such a beautiful way of living. Even if things aren't what you would consider perfect, a warrior spirit is just tapping into you, because you're put on this earth for a purpose, and the world needs you to work that purpose. So keep looking until you find it, because it leaves you in a place of contentment, I guess. What I would say, and that's been a very, very long time coming.
Well, I appreciate that you joined me today in our tribe, and I'm glad that you're out the other side and doing your life's purpose as well. It's funny how we can look back at the mess of our life and find out that the tapestry becomes our purpose in life. So, kudos to you for getting out that other side and helping so many others. And I just appreciate you joining me today on the show.
Thanks, Daryl. I've really enjoyed it.
And if you'd like to connect with Jodi, you can connect to her on her website, jodiannelaw.com, and all of her social media platforms, and take control of your health. And I want to thank you again for joining us on this edition of A Warrior Spirit. Be sure to like or subscribe so that you catch all the episodes, and have a beautiful, energy-centered day.
It's not just about the fight, it's how we rise from it. This is your Prospera era, where dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine. Welcome to your moment, Prospera, it's time.
We hope you enjoyed today's show on Prospera TV Network. Make it a point to visit us on YouTube and catch all your favorite shows anytime you want. Interested in hosting a show of your own? Or advertising your business on our network? Contact Elena Rodriguez.